to look at where we're running this weekend at Barbagallo Raceway in Perth. And as I said before, we are 35 kilometres north of the city. It's a beautiful day and it's a beautiful layout here. It's a tricky little circuit. You can see it up there to the north of Scarborough. It is 7 turns, 2.41 kilometres. Craig Lowndes, as I mentioned before, has been the boss of this location 4 of the last 5 years. Mark Skaife has the best qualifying record with a stunning 56.9. They're not getting near to those times now with the different tyre from when we've raced here in the past. But for a closer look, let's go for the ultimate backseat ride with our good friend Greg Murphy with the Kmart inside line.
Thanks, Neil. Welcome aboard the Kmart Racer for a lap of Barbagallo, the place that's surrounded by sand. And for a circuit that's got such an abrasive surface, you'd think it had a lot of grip, but with the sand around here, it gets on the circuit and makes this place very slippery. We're going up through the S section here, which is quite tricky. You've got to be very careful because you're hard on the brakes now into the sweeper, which is taking around 3rd gear, accelerating out of here. As you can see all the sand on the outside of the circuit. This is a bit tricky. A lot of cars put a wheel off on that side, dragging a lot of dirt on. This is one of probably the best passing opportunities down here into this sweep section here. A lot of cars go underneath passing under brakes through that section. Accelerating out is very, very tricky as we accelerate all the way up to 6th gear. You've got to be very careful on the throttle through that section and not to get too much wheel spin, otherwise you do lose some speed and it compromises you down into braking in the shell down here, the last corner. It's a very short circuit but provides plenty of entertainment, lots of action going on here as you come through the last corner onto the front straight again. It seems like it's only taken a few seconds, but that's 57, 58 seconds for a lap. Thanks for coming aboard the Kmart car today. Thanks a lot.
Well, the man with the ultimate inside line at Barbagallo Raceway is Paul Radisich. 3 times he's taken provisional pole, but hasn't been able to nail it in the single car shootouts. He's finally done it at Barbagallo. Paul, what a brilliant lap.
Thanks, Mark. Everything went really well. I mean, maybe I learned something from Canberra just to back off a little bit and not push 10 tenths. And I guess I was pretty close, but you know, it's great to complete it, and it's good for the team, good for self-confidence, and particularly around this track, it is so difficult to pass that if you can start on the front, you know, you're reducing your workload by 90%.
How are your 8 tyres looking for the 3 races today?
Well, at the moment they're looking good. We've only done 1 lap on each set, and this is the first time we've run this type of Bridgestone tyre around here, so we don't know how far it's going to go before anything happens, and it's just a matter of conserving them, and if the tyres are good, which I'm sure they will be, towards the end of the race, then you know, that's going to be the key to the success around here.
Best of luck.
Thanks.
And Paul looking to make amends for that qualifying faux pas in Canberra. He starts from pole position. Now, because of the time difference here in the West, we actually had a race yesterday, the first of these 3 sprint races. So after the break, we're going to take a look at that. And also for our Australian viewers, Shell Australia have got a wonderful competition running where you have the chance to possibly join us at this year's Queensland 500.
Here comes Radisich, and oh, he's pulling it a bit lane. He's asking him to pull a big man in casual attire out of the car. Now he's getting out. There's a lady with a floral top and an overnight bag.
Buy Shell Helix and you could win a trip for 2 to the Queensland 500 or one of 10 Rat Pack consolation prizes. Just call the number on screen and quote the barcode from your Helix pack.
He's driving away. There's 4 bottles of Shell Helix, and that says Shell Helix engine protection proven in the extreme.
Welcome back to the West for round 6 of the championship. Earlier in the week, Craig Lowndes celebrates his, what was it, 47th birthday? No, he's 27. We're not going to sing happy birthday. He's with the Mayor of Perth. Congratulations, Craig Lowndes, on your birthday, and let's see what he can produce today. He'll start 7th on the grid for this race 1 of 3, sprint race format. Totally different deal, and here's the way they line up on the Shell Helix scoreboard. Paul Radisich has pole. It's an all-Ford front row seating alongside him. Then Paul Morris, the first of the Holdens. Russell Ingall, Mark Skaife, Larry Perkins, a good performance in the shootout for 6th. Craig Lowndes 7th, and Greg Murphy for Kmart 8th.
Just a reminder, Craig Lowndes has not been beaten here in V8 Supercar. Could that change this weekend? Jason Bright still struggling with that HRT Commodore just outside the, or actually in 10th position. Cameron McConville just outside the top 10, 11. Bargwana in 12th. Stephen Johnson, winner on the streets of Canberra. He's back in 14th. Paul Wheel up inside the top 20.
Mark Larkham having a difficult weekend with the ICS Ford. Marcus Ambrose had a misfire throughout practice qualifying and the shootout. It's been costly. He's down in 18. Richards, Ellery, Bernard, Jason Richards from New Zealand, then John Faulkner and Tony Longhurst is 24.
Anthony Tratt and Bradley Jones start out at 26. Trevor Ashby and Paul Romano, the Holden Young line, back in 28th. Rodney Forbes and Cameron McLean having problems in qualifying. 30th, Tony Ricciardello, a local, driving Mike Embry's car in 31st. And Daniel Miller, another lad from Perth, he's out of 32.
Paul Romano has been pushed away from the grid, as you can see in the background in the Holden Young Lions, entry car number 24. So he hasn't been able to take his position on the warm-up lap as we go on board with Marcus Ambrose, one of 6 competitors carrying onboard cameras for us this weekend. Ambrose has 3 cameras on board. Here's Mark Scape with the VV camera.
Reigning champion, car Mark's talking about before the race. He was just saying everyone's struggling for grip out there, just can't quite get it handling the way he wants it. Paul Rastich, Shell Helix in-car camera, pole position. Second pole position since Simmons Plains in 1999.
4 cameras on board for Greg Murphy from New Zealand, carrying the camera for Kmart.
Murph, and here's Greg Lowndes, the man who has been unbeaten here in his V8 Supercar career. And he's got his work cut out for him this afternoon. He's back in 7th place. And keep in mind, there's no pit stops here where the Gibson Motorsport team can do the usual leapfrog. He's going to have to fight it out from the front.
Air is 21 degrees and that temperature is actually dropping a little at the moment. By comparison to practice qualifying and the shootout, this is the first time that we've actually seen cloud cover, and that will have some impact on the balance of the cars. Russell Ingall there taking position, and the word comes through that Paul Romano has some sort of a gearbox failure with the Young Lion EA Sports entry, and they're now wheeling him into pit lane.
First corner here is going to be fun and games, isn't it? It's
so dominant, in fact. I'll just get that in a minute. We check on the Ford race analysis at Barbagallo. 320 lap races, 48 kilometres the distance for each, 32 starters. Qualifying, look at that, 1 second covering 1st to 22nd on the grid. Last year's winner, of course, was Craig Lowndes, who started out of 7th today.
As you were saying there, probably being on the left-hand side of the road in the first corner is not a bad idea, is it?
It's not bad because you get a clean race line. We've got a green flag. The tail enders will start on the corner, the final corner. Revs build, 5 seconds is the signal. Radicic makes a great jump away from Seaton. Morris goes with him for second, and Ingall will go down the inside as well. It's a tardy start from Glenn Seaton, who gets squeezed back out to 4th. Radicic off in a blinder.
Yeah, Seaton had better than he start last year. If you remember, he went on the grass and knocked his spoiler off, didn't he?
See if we get a clean start. That first turn has always been troublesome in the past. Looks like everyone's got through cleanly. 32 cars heading up the hill for the first time.
One of the Valvoline cars really crossed up on the run to turn 4. Wide of the race line here, it's very marbly and dirty. There's obviously a lot of sand around the location here. It blows onto the circuit, and because it's abrasive, it tends to knock the tyres around, and they leave marbles. There they are on the outside of turn 6 down there at Cold Corner.
Well, big improver this weekend is Paul Morris. He's starting to show some form on the streets of Canberra. Now he's followed on in WA, second. Fast out of the box, got the jump on Glenn Seaton. Finds himself second behind the Shell Ford as they swing onto the pit straight for the first time.
Oh, look at this Ambrose down inside of John Behell almost.
So a nice clean start so far. Here's the queue as they come across the line. It's Radicic, Morris, Ingall, Glenn Seaton, Mark Scape, Larry Perkins, Greg Murphy in there too. Craig Lowndes, Todd Kelly, Jason Bright rounding out the top 10.
Right, you really can't afford to get off line, can you? See Ingall there, the back end of his thing hanging out. It's really dirty and dusty off line.
The other thing that happens, Barry, is that cars drag dirt up when they get wide on the curbing here, and that means the guy behind gets covered in rubbish and obviously loses grip. Standing lap time for Radicic was a 63.1. He was 0.5 quicker than Morris on the opening lap. On board with Ingall from row 2. Look at the wheel spin that Seaton gets, and then he quickly tries to cover, but it's not quick enough. Morris up the inside, Ingall up the inside. Glenn gets shuffled back out to 4th, and a little rattle on the door just for good measure.
So Paul Radicic just pumped it out a car length or 2 over Morris in 3rd. Russell Ingall in there. And Seaton, Mark Scape, Larry Perkins. Good start from the veteran. He's up in 6th.
You see the shot there as they came through the final corner of Scape coaxing the car around turn 7 as Stephen Johnson, the last round winner, tries to go up the inside of Paul Wheel with John Bow on the outside of him, and it's pretty slippery out there, JB.
I was talking to Stephen Johnson earlier in the weekend, and he said, yeah, it's been great to win Canberra, but he said what we have to do, what this team has to do is get some consistency in our performance. This has been so up and down, the speed and the performance of these shell forwards throughout the year. They really need to get some consistency, particularly into their chassis. They're going to mount a strong challenge for the championship.
Tyres will be discussed in earnest all weekend, because this place being abrasive, it's the first time that this control tyre has been used at this track. Last year, the new tyre that we now have was introduced after this round for the Clipsal 500. So many teams having to fiddle with their setups in order to get the sweet spot right. Look at the black clouds off in the distance here. And the sun can be very bad in the braking area as you go into turn 7 here. And Seaton now being attacked by by Scape.
Well, we said in the driver's briefing from the driving standards observer, Colin Bond, they'll tolerate a little bit of blocking, but if a driver continually dives down the inside line, they'll be shown the bad sportsmanship flag. So Seaton have to watch it. The officials will be watching him. This tight battle. It's only a 20-minute sprint. Every position crucial.
The temperatures are in the last half an hour's dropped down 2 or 3 degrees. That's going to play right into the guy's hands that are really struck. Everybody's struck heavy tyres. And had this have been a really hot race, and the 2 races tomorrow have been later on really hot, so they've been struck. Oh, sorry.
Just dropped the wheel off the edge, and it's brought a lot of dust up as they came out of the bottom corner at cold corner turn 6. Scape looking threatening, trying to make ground under brakes as they come into the final corner. That next bunch is pretty tight as well. It contains, well, who have you got in there? Perkins, Murphy, Lowndes, Kelly.
Radicic is doing it nicely at the moment. 2.3 seconds the gap he's built on Paul Morris. He's the fastest man on the track. A 58.56, the fastest lap so far for the Shell Ford driver.
Remember, this round does not involve compulsory pit stops. It's a square fight to the end. 20-minute races, 3 of them, and what you've got to fight with. Anthony Tratt's been shown a black flag, car number 75, the passenger's door, it keeps flapping open. So obviously he made contact with somebody in the opening lap or laps, and the door isn't fastened, so he's going to have to come in and solve it. Here is Mark Scape having a look up the inside of Glenn Seaton. This time he's got a better run. Glenn's had a tardy run coming out. Mark just looks across.
He's got him too, cleaned him up on the climb out of Cold Turn. Critical to get a good run out of there. Look at this battle here, though.
And Lowndes is going to go up the inside.
Oh, big contact. Big hit in the front left guard for Lowndes.
Well, it wasn't anybody's fault, that was it? It was just luck of the draw.
And Kmart car fights back to hold position.
And if that made contact with the front left wheel, then it will inevitably have made some damage on the Lowndes car, maybe change the toe angles in the front left.
We'll try and get a look on the outside of the Lowndes car when we can. The Shell Helix replay of the Anthony Tratt situation.
Door?
Yeah. So you can't drive around with the door flapping in the breeze like that, so he's going to have to bring that in and get that fixed.
Waving to the crowd, it's 1 for yes and 2 for no.
Meanwhile, back on board with Craig Lowndes. This is the classic indication of the old racing format, the 20-minute sprint. Once you get stuck back in the queue, you really pay a penalty. And look at this battle now. Russell Ingall's got plenty of speed on board. The Castrol Commodore has a sniff up the inside of Paul Morris. Not quite close enough. Morris wants to fight. They're going to argue as they go down the pit straight, but Paul Morris gets good acceleration out of the turn on the main straight. He moves across to cover his line, and Russell Ingall gets his nose shut off.
He gave him a little bit of a tap down there in the final corner. He's giving him another little love bite just as they go through turn 1.
Starting to become, I think, Neil, you say the cork in the bottle. A few cars starting to bunch up behind Paul Morris now in the big cab racer.
And when you start to struggle here, it's because your rear tyres go away. That's what was happening with Glenn Seaton. He got a bad run coming out of turn 6, and it looks like Morris has got the same disease with his car at the moment. If you started with a car that was squarely or neatly balanced and turning well, and inevitably goes away from you here, you almost have to have another setting for the race to be gentle on the rear tyres.
So cars starting to queue up behind the big cab racer. Let's have a look at the replay of the Lowndes incident. We might see the contact here. Boof. Didn't look that big from inside. It certainly looked like a bigger impact from the outside.
Yes, got it.
So Ingall down the inside of Paul Morris, who's starting to struggle now.
And Scape's going to have a run at him as well. Scape's got a better run off the final corner, and he'll try and crisscross him at the other end, but Morris, as a wake-up, covers his ground well. Seaton still a watching brief in behind in 5th. Perkins, Murphy, Lowndes, Kelly, Bright, McConville, Barbagallo, Johnson, the last round winner, 13th. Then Tander, Wheel, Bow, Ambrose, Stephen Richards, Ellery and Bernard. That's your top 20 with Larkham just outside.
Well, Radicic, look at the time starting to slip now. He's out to the low 59s. Everyone else in the 60-second bracket. This is what Mark Scaife forecast very early on in race 1. He thought the times would pump out to the minutes.
It's a six-second lead he's got, which is pretty good, isn't it?
Scaife's really threatening. You can hear Mark just paddling the throttle a little bit through turn 4 and 5 over the top of the hill. He's just waiting for the car to settle down, waiting for the rear of the car just to sit so that he can get some drive into it. He'll look under brakes down here once again. It's an uphill brake, and Morris leaves room, and he's up there.
Former teammates Paul Morris and Mark Scaife. Morris, of course, joined the Holden Racing team a couple of years back, helped Mark Scaife and Craig Lowndes to that strong result in the Shell Championship Series. He's on his own now in the big cab car, hard under brakes as they come up to turn 1, but not able to fight back on the Holden Racing team driver.
It was a smart move from Morris because, given the fact that he knew that he was starting to struggle a little bit by not running the defensive line, it takes a bit of the pressure out of the situation and therefore not as likely to get a whack in the tail and spun off and can hold at least a strong position, whereas if you dispute sometimes when your car's going away from you, particularly early in the race, it's a high-risk game that you're playing because you can end up in the weeds.
Got to say, it's the most outstanding performance from this Queensland-based team. They haven't been in V8 Supercar racing very long. Got quite an experienced crew. Arch McMurray, one of the veterans of touring car racing in Australia, preparing the engines, and Paul Sepranich, the man who worked with the Stone Brothers operation last year, is now on board as chief engineer. And keep in mind, they're still running the ex-Holden Racing Team Commodore. Their first in-house built car is yet to come.
Seaton up the inside and makes the move, and Larry will go with him, and the Kmart cars are in there as well. So Morris is really losing rear grip on this car at the moment and getting...
He's under siege, isn't
getting
he?
shuffled down the order. There's a queue of them, and they'll box his ears and all run through the inside. Lowndes is in there as well.
So Paul Morris just losing positions, hand over fist. Here comes the Kmart car. He wants to argue as they come up through the S's, but he has to give way. That car really struggling for rear end grip now.
Well, he's been sensible about it. At least he's not getting in everybody's way. He's letting people pass
He's battling as hard as he can, but once you find yourself getting shoved and elbowed by the pack, they'll maul you.
The hardest thing to come to terms with these cars is running a soft suspension setup, which they seem to like. Paul Morris's car obviously performing very well in qualifying trim, but under race conditions, just giving the tyres too much of a hard time.
51 is Murphy, then it's Perkins, then Lowndes, then Kelly. There's Morris, and he's got Bright all over him, making a move down the inside now, and Bright will look for some space going to turn 1. Morris is just squeezing across. It's all happening now as we get into the second half of this race. Round 6 of the championship, race 1. Radicic, big margin. Look at it, 8 seconds over Ingle, Scaife, Seaton, Murphy, Perkins, Lowndes and Kelly.
Paul Morris, Jason Bright round out the top 10. More from Barbagallo Raceway on Network 10.
If you want to
8.68 seconds on the last lap is the margin. Radicic to Ingle. He's out there on his own. Look at that gap in the background. It's forever. And there's Ingle, and Scaife's just got a watching station there at the moment, but it looks like it's settled down, Barry.
Yeah, you look at Radicic's time is 0.6 of a second, 0.6 of a second quicker than anyone, which is massive.
Bright and Morris in vigorous dispute for a minor placing here. It's 9th and 10th, and Bright really looking for every opportunity. Barbagallo behind him, who was quick in practice early. Then Stephen Johnson. Cameron McConville is the next man, just a couple of car lengths back then. Wheel, John Bow and Stephen Richards. That gives you an idea of the layout. Turns 1, 2, 3. The left-hander into turn 4. Positive camber, uphill corner. A blind brow for 5. It's a fabulous shot. Gives you an idea of the layout of the circuit, and given the Saturday race, a very big crowd here.
You look at some of the guys low down the field. Is Bernard in 20th, Henry in 19th, Ambrose.
Look at that, Larry Perkins way offline on the entry to Cold Corner. Craig Lowndes could see him drifting wide, took advantage. Gibson Motorsport car picks up another spot.
Just listening to the radios, it doesn't seem to be anybody's complaining too much of tyre wear at the moment. Talking to the Bridgestone boys, they say this is the slipperiest track we go to because of the road base, and they're now finding that the rocks in the road base are all rounded off, so it's so slippery. The tyre wear will be a problem because of those same rocks. It's just tearing strips. How much will they have at the end of the race? We're only going to know when that comes around.
Well, Radicic is beautifully positioned at the front there. He's 9.5 seconds. He's demolishing this field. He's obviously very, very comfortable. But he's just being able to drive a nice, straight, conservative line as well. Protect those tyres.
Looking from the back of Craig Lowndes' car, he's in 6th at the moment. There's the 27-year-old at work. Old bloke, isn't he?
We used to call him the kid only a few years ago.
4 millimetres is the tread depth with these Bridgestone control tyres, and there's tread depth indicators on both sides of the tyre. And everybody will be having a long, hard look at the left rear in particular here. Corners like this are the ones that do the damage. A lot of horsepower going through the left-hand corner of the car. Climbing the hill, 600 horsepower. Don't forget to check out the V8 Supercar website, and that address is www for the World Wide Web, v8supercar.com.au. Lots of details about the series, the drivers, the teams, and also check out while you're online dreamdrive.tv. It's a fabulous game to play, and if you haven't already looked at that site, then I'd recommend you do so. And you can, and Larry has gone out a big way down in turn 1. Locked up, got it all wrong. Something weird has happened there.
That was a dramatic exit from the track, wasn't it? I wonder if something's broken on that car.
Like I don't know whether my imagination, it looked like the front left had already turned in.
I'd like to see that again in slow-mo.
Well, did someone mention before that I think he had a little bit of a rub with one of the other guys a bit earlier, so maybe something's broken, but it certainly looked like an unusual way. I mean, Larry doesn't make those sorts of mistakes traditionally.
And the battle at the front, Mark Scape, this is his teammate Jason Bright. But up front, Scape is just closing the gap to Ingle. He's within 1 second of the Castrol Commodore. Paul Radicic has bolted 9.7 seconds. He's almost got that lead out to over 10 seconds now over Ingle. This is the battle a bit further back in the pack. Jason Bright in 10th spot. And Johnson, classic example of what he was talking about the inconsistency of his car's performance this year. It just goes up and down like a yo-yo. Let's have a look at this Larry Perkins situation.
Larry was having a look down the inside. No, I think he might just have right lock on there.
Yeah, I could have understood.
He was right under the tail of the Kmart car and maybe just missed his braking marker, and he's
a long way.
Got it very deep at Wanneroo Beach.
And here we are. This is the battle for second place between Russell Ingle and Mark Scape. Scape's just been chipping away at it. 10th of a second here, 10th of a second there, and he's right on the back of the Castrol car now as they come out of the sweeper and punch up this hill once again. 5 laps remaining for our race leader, Paul Radicic. At second place, the battle for that is not over yet.
It's a return to form for Russell after having a difficult Canberra. Of course, he was strong up in Darwin, and then he had some unreliability problems. Scape's right with him. You notice that Mark's been glancing in the mirror occasionally because he's got Seaton behind him. We've got 5 to go as they cross the line this time.
First time Paul Radicic has done a 60-second lap. It's out to 60.12. He's been running around in the low to mid-59s for the first part of the race. So everyone now pumping out to the 60-second bracket, but it's over. Look at the lead of Radicic. It's out to 10.4 seconds. He's been building at least half a second on this field every lap.
Bad sportsmanship flag has just been shown to Morris, car number 29. He's in front of a pack of cars that involves Johnson and Bright. And Bright's actually lost a place to Johnson, so something going on back there. And Morris, if he continues to offend, will be brought in. Look at Scape. Oh, he's giving him a little tag. Russell's wide of the line. And he's very gingerly on the throttle. So hard to get power to the ground with both of these cars.
This is just like ice skating, isn't it? Trying to get 600 horsepower to the ground. The car's sliding every way. Look at this attack now under brakes. Scape. What is that? Moves over. Hard under brakes. Takes second place from Ingle.
I think it's just rubber build-up, Barry.
Yeah, it's just...
Ingle wants to argue, though. He's got a good run out of the corner onto the pit straight. Scape's giving him room down the inside, but he's not close enough to attack under brakes. So Scape takes second spot.
You can see how delicately... Hello and welcome.
Love tag.
You can see how delicately you have to use the throttle around this track, particularly when the grip's gone away from the rear of the car. That bottom corner, turn 6, where you come out of the gully, it's so difficult to get the cars to grip there, and you just can't drive them like a racing car. You've got to be so... It's like driving in the wet.
Look at offline here. Look at the rubber and stuff when you get offline. I mean, it's history.
This is the corner that really knocks the left rear tyre around, and this is the one where Russell was weak that last time through.
Watch this as they drive out of here. Look who's got the better. Look at Scape. Just opening up 1 or 2 metres on him, just under power. That's where you find it. Just a little bit better drive coming out of that corner.
And it's a fabulous run down the hill. It's a roller coaster ride over the brow into the braking area. The braking area is uphill. Here are the margins. There's Seaton. Further back it's Murphy, then Lowndes, then Kelly, then Morris.
Radicic's got 12.1 seconds now.
He's just been pulling out something like a half a second to a second a lap.
So whatever he's discovered in setup land, I think everybody else would like a dose of it.
Working a treat. He's doing it so effortlessly. Back in the 59s as well, a 59.87 for the race leader. Everyone behind him, 60-second bracket or higher. So this car working particularly well around here. Not nearly as so impressive from his teammate Stephen Johnson, who's struggling around the back of the top 10.
And it'll only be subtle, Mark. It'll be just a little difference here and there. Maybe they've got a ride height difference, a shock absorber setting, maybe fraction of different spring rate, whatever, but it can be just enough sometimes. But Radisich has got his car working like a dream. His last lap through was at 59.8. He's the only person in the 59s, and we're well into the closing stages of this race.
Paul Radisich currently 14th in the Shell Championship Series points with only 2 laps remaining. Paul Morris continuing to fight on now. He falls into the clutches of Stephen Johnson. Headlights on.
Look at that rubber build-up Barry was talking about at the brow of the hill.
Just destroying the tyres around here. Morris now fighting a rearguard action. Johnson is in 9th position. Morris is in 8th. And Jason Bright is 10th. Look, can Johnson find a way past this big Kev racer before this race is over? 2 laps remaining.
Very dark outside now. I think they'll get through with just 2 laps to run, a little less for the leader now, but certainly the threat of showers in the late afternoon.
Look at this.
And Paul's got the elbows high. He's had a good showing today. He doesn't want to yield positions unnecessarily. And Stephen's applying the blowtorch.
You get the feeling something's going to happen down at the sweeper here.
Oh, look at this.
So often a car with tyres in slightly better condition can pounce, particularly on the exit. They get a sharper bite at the apex of the turn, a little bit more speed coming out.
Oh, a little bit of a lock-up.
Look at Junior now setting up for a big attack on the way out. Morris just
pinched the front right a little bit when it was unloaded going into the braking area. He might be fractionally stronger coming off, but it's not like he's got a car that's massively quicker at the moment than Morris. He's got a little bit of an edge on him, but it's hard to find a way around when cars are relatively equally matched.
Paul Morris has headed off on his final lap. This battle isn't over yet. This is for Paul Morris in 8th, Johnson in 9th, Bright in 10th. It's been so much of a story of this year for Jason Bright since he's taken over this new Holden Racing Team Commodore. His car just has been so uncooperative in terms of setup. It's been a real mind bender for the team trying to figure out just what it is this car needs. Every time they put it on the track early in the weekend, it's just so far from where they want to be, and then he has to work all through the weekend trying to get it dialed in. Here's our race leader and dominant race winner. 13 seconds the gap Paul Radisich has over the field. He's murdered him.
Great run from Radisich and the Shell team. He's absolutely slaughtered the pack in round 6, race 1. It's a huge margin, and we're still waiting for second place to arrive at the final corner. Congratulations to Radisich, and here's the battle. It'll be Mark Scape, the championship leader, Russell Ingall in hot pursuit in 3rd, and the gap at the end, 12.7 seconds. Then Seaton, Murphy, Lowndes, Kelly will be next. The dispute is going to be resolved in favour of Paul Morris with Stephen Johnson, then Jason Bright, who lost a place in that little battle. Gap then back to Barbagallo, McConville, then Bow, with big margin back to Stephen Richards, Ellery, Paul Wheel, Tony Longhurst, Marcus Ambrose, then Cameron McLean, David Bernard, Mark Larkham, Brad Jones, and then Garth Tander, followed by Rodney Forbes, and there is our race winner. And it all looks pretty cool and comfortable for Paul Radisich.
How easy is that when you're out in front and you got the setup right on the car, Neil? The cruising Sunday drive, or Saturday drive, I should say.
And that puts him in a great position for the second race. The order of the results in this event will determine the starting order for the second race.
It's just so typical of the domination we've seen from Craig Lowndes here over the years with the Holden Racing Team cars. Just so quick in qualifying, and then when the races start, it's just get a good start. See you later.
And it's the first time for a while that we haven't seen this HRT Lowndes domination of recent years. And here's the way they finished. 12.7 seconds, Radisich to Scape. Ingall, Seaton, Murphy, Lowndes, Kelly and Morris, the top 8.
Stephen Johnson and Jason Bright rounded out the top 10. Barbagallo, McConville well placed in 12th. John Bow up to 13th. Stephen Richards, Stephen Ellery and Paul Wheel round out the top 16.
Then there was this tight battle between Longhurst, Ambrose, McLean, Bernard, Larkham, Jones, Tander and Forbes.
Trevor Ashby and Daniel Miller, the local. 26, John Faulkner, Jason Richards, Tony Ricciardelli getting down to the DNFs. More after the break.
Thumbs up and a big smile from Paul Radisich. He has reason to be very happy, cleaning up the first race by one heck of a margin, 12.7 seconds. And there's the Shell Helix race score. Radisich, Scape, Ingall, Seaton. Some notables. Stephen Johnson qualified 14th. moved up to 9th. Cameron McLean qualified 30th and moved to 19th. And poor old Larry Perkins back there in 31st, in actual fact, did not finish because Larry ended up beached down there on the outside of turn 1. An unhappy time for him. But certainly not the case for Paul Radisich. He was thrilled, and he's with Grant Denyer.
Well, Paul Radisich from pole to a win, it really does help when you start at the front, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does. It makes light work of it, and I think Johnson team's done a fantastic job. You know, they've worked very hard on these cars to make it competitive, and really starting to show what it's capable of. So, this track, you just got to start up front, and you know, Paul Morris made my life a lot easier today, but that's what happens when you start at the front.
How's that winning margin? We thought that would be the last thing that would happen here.
What? Oh, sorry, I missed that.
I said, how about that winning margin? We thought that would be the last thing that would happen here.
Well, it's, yeah, who knows? It's motorsport, you know. Some days they go really well, and I was, you know, the other guys were racing, and I just had a clear track, and around here, if you've got a clear track, you know, you're able just to drive your own race.
Well, they look so slippy on the track. We've got to ask you, how much tyre do you think you have left?
Well, I was you know, saying to the guys, how far back are they in the game? You know, 10, 11, 12, slopping back. I think, gee, if I'm having trouble, they must be too. So it is very abrasive, and tyre wear is a real problem. It's just a matter of conserving them as best you can.
Well done, Paul. We've got another 2 to go.
Absolutely. Thanks. Cheers.
And a very big crowd for the first race. We only just squeaked home before some what would have been pretty ordinary weather for those guys. It would have stopped the race. Very cloudy and the potential for showers. But, you know, we talk a lot about the officials in V8 supercar racing in the commentary box here. Sometimes we give them a bad time, sometimes we give them a tick. So who's making the tough calls in the V8 supercar paddock? Well, Greg Rust is going to take us on a tour of Official Central.
In just about every sport, the umpire is seen as a bad guy or a bit of a mug. They've got the most toughest and unenviable job in the world, and sometimes they get it wrong. Doesn't matter whether it's AFL, rugby league or motor racing, all the competitors want is some consistency with decisions. So, who's making all the big calls in the V8 supercar paddock? Come on, we'll introduce you to them now.
Red flag, red flag, red flag.
This is race control, the nerve centre of the entire operation. Just about every piece of communication from marshals and officials right around the circuit is relayed through this point. At the top of our chain of command, if you like, is ex-Formula 1 driver and race director Tim Schenken. Now, Tim is basically the top dog, if you like, of V8 supercar officialdom. He works closely with the clerk of the course or race manager at each round. Tim's decisions on start procedure, for example, and whether someone may have jumped the start. He's responsible for calling out the safety car and issuing stop-go penalties and that dreaded black flag, of course. It's also Tim's call to red flag a race if there's been a major incident of some kind. So there's a lot of responsibility resting on Tim's shoulders. Most infringements are dealt with during the course of a race, with an instant penalty, for example, like a stop-go. But if a matter requires further investigation, it comes here to the steward's room. Now, Garth Wigston is the chief steward. He's backed up by Peter Svensson and a local steward, depending upon which track we're at. They're all experienced race drivers, and when it comes to an inquiry, they're assisted by Colin Bond, former Australian touring car champion and Bathurst winner. He's the driving standards observer. Together, they can conduct a thorough video review of an incident with every available angle of footage, and they'll consult with the relevant parties too, like drivers, team managers, and the race director before deciding whether to take any further action. The judges have backed, and there's several of them policing pit lane. Their decisions are final. Running this side of the operation, the category's technical manager, Paul Taylor. Operations manager, Ray Robbins, and Steve Brown assist him here as well. These guys are basically keeping an eye on a number of things. Whether there's been any pit lane infringements committed, like speeding, wheel nuts and wheels flying off into the fast lane during a pit stop, etc. And they administer all of the penalties, the on-the-spot ones, like stop-goes. With technology in motorsport continuing to expand at a rapid rate, it's important to ensure that no one gets an unfair advantage through the data or engine management side of the business. This is Carl Jacobs. He's a qualified electronics engineer who regularly checks the data loggers in each car. Now, these loggers are independent from the Motec or Tronic systems used by the teams. Carl basically makes sure that no one exceeds the 7,500 RPM limit when they're out on the track, and he's looking for evidence of any kind of traction control devices which are banned. So there you go, that's the very top end of the decision-making process. Obviously the scrutineers and of course the flag marshals have some input in decisions like that, and they're all working to the same common set of rules. Here they are. It's pretty thick, isn't it? Nice little piece of bedtime reading. And like any legal argument, rules like this are always open to interpretation.
Thank you, whispering Greg Rust. Greg Russ brings us up to date with what goes on behind the scenes with the officials. Well, throughout the year, we've been going at home with various drivers, and this week it's birthday boy Craig Lowndes' turn. Let's go to the circuit breaker.
Hi, I'm Craig Lowndes. When I'm not racing, I'm sitting here at home on the ranch, north of Brisbane. We've got my horse, which is Duffy. He's a quarter horse. He's very, very classic, great for me. We've got a Anglo-Arab, which is Nat's horse, which is her original horse, Blue. She's in file. Here comes the little one. This is Suchu. This is Minnie Moo. This is the one we keep talking about. She's probably more the pest. She's the one that comes into the house, and the others, just as you can see, just roam around the garden, eat my plants. Come in.
Probably after the race round, you're looking at 2 to 3 days, just getting back to all the emails and all the fans that write to Craig. Generally, he lays down on the floor and just half falls asleep and answers my questions, and I just type away. And some of the questions are, you know, Craig, will you marry me?
How do you answer those ones, Natalie?
Generally, I say he's got a girlfriend, Minnie Moo, and a wife that sits at home.
Well, these are the two Yamahas, and the only thing I've done to this is pull the mufflers out of the exhaust because it's got to sound fat. To come home and just feed the animals and really just mingle with them when you get home, it sort of just brings you back away from that scene, and you know, we love it here.
Should we do a horsepower gag? I don't think so. We're coming back with race 2 from Perth very shortly. Stay with us. You're on 10, your home of motorsport. It's a beautiful day here in Perth as we welcome you back to Barbagallo Raceway. Look at this monster crowd. I've been coming here for about 280 years and I've never seen one this big, Mark Osler. It's really big.
No, they love their motorsport over in WA. They've absolutely packed out Barbagallo Raceway. There's not a spot anywhere. The queue outside the track was several kilometres long.
And if only the people stuck in the queue could get in.
If only we'd got your police escort, Baz, we would have all got here at the same time.
It is a tremendous crowd. It genuinely is the largest crowd we've ever seen at this racetrack, and they're here for a feast of sprint racing today. This is race number 2, and there's the field. They're on the start-finish straight, set to go away on their warm-up lap, and it's a Ford Holden affair at the top of the queue, with Radicic having won yesterday's round 1 sprint race. Scape alongside. There's the lineup. Russell Ingall was strong. He finished 3rd. Glenn Seaton will be alongside him. So it's Ford Holden, then Holden Ford. Greg Murphy 5th, then Craig Lowndes for Gibson Motorsport. Todd Kelly and Paul Morris shuffled down the order to 8th.
Stephen Johnson, he's still struggling with a nasty dose of the flu there. He's back at 9th. Jason Bright in 10th. Jason Barkwana and Cameron McConville doing well in the Optus machine. John Bow and Stephen Richards, Stephen Ellery and Paul Wheel in 16th.
Tony Longhurst, Marcus Ambrose, dogfire, misfire yesterday, but no problems in this morning's warm-up. The car will be strong. McLean, Bernard, Larkham Jones, Tander and Rodney Forbes, 24.
If you have a look down the right-hand side of the Shell Helix scoreboard, you'll notice those yellow boxes. That shows where the car's qualified, and so you can determine how they've been progressing throughout the day. Keep in mind the finishing positions from one race determine the starting grid for the next.
Just about everybody's garage who you go and say, oh yeah, we've changed it for today. They're all chasing to get the thing set up. His car, Radish's car yesterday was brilliant.
It's been amazing. This is going to be a real battle, though, because Mark Scape, as a result of that drive yesterday, has forged his way up to 2nd place. That means he'll start on the outside of the front row. So this first sprint to turn 1 is going to be a thriller.
A relatively simple layout, but a complex place to get the car set up right for. It's just a very awkward combination here, and as mentioned already, this is the first time that this control tyre has been used here at Barbagallo. Last year, the tyre was introduced after this round. This was round 2 in 2000, and the new tyre was introduced for the Clipsal 500 in Adelaide. So it's taken teams, drivers, engineers some time to figure out the nuances of this tyre around the track, and various people who you might expect to be further up the grid are battling at the moment trying to get their cars to work right. Only 8 tyres allocated for this sprint race.
A lot of guys learned some hard lessons yesterday, going out with a setup that was too stiff for this track. It really did torture the tyres. Paul Morris was one of the drivers who found that at the hard way. He had a Brilliant setup to get a lot of speed out of the car over one flying lap, but once he started to string a few together, the car really started to punish the rear tyres and he slipped back through the field.
I don't think I've seen the cars pitch and roll as much as that. You dive on the brakes, lift on the nose out of corners, and the corner onto the start and finish straight when they hit the curve there. It's incredible.
Fires them up into the air. They're looking to try and get some sensitivity back in the car. I remember Larry Perkins yesterday in race 1 firing off into the sand trap and buried the car. He's right at the tail end of the field. He'll actually have to negotiate the final right-hander before he can even get onto the start-finish straight. Huge field.
That was a loose bleed screw apparently in his caliper. Let the pressure out.
Simple things cost so much. Here's the front row of the grid. Mark Skaife qualified 5th, fought his way up to 2nd in race 1 yesterday. Now he finds himself alongside the pole position man, the man who has dominated so far, broken the Holden Racing Team stranglehold on qualifying and race 1. Can he do it in race 2?
All clear and set now for a start.
Quite a long time.
I think they've had a large failure. They're using the flag to actually get the field away, and it's a great start for Radisich. Seaton's made contact with Lowndes. Lowndes has made a blinder. He's jumped up from a long way down the grid, battling on the outside with Skaife as they go through turn 1. Ingles right alongside him. This will be interesting when they get to the S's. Rusty will not give up in a hurry. Radisich, then Skaife. Turn 4. An awkward start. Something went wrong with the automatic light system and they had to resort to the national flag, and Glenn Seaton's got problems. If you look at the FTR Falcon, you'll notice that the front end of the air dam of the car is actually dismounted on one of the sides there, and it's dragging on the road. That will inevitably force him to stop. At the very least, it'll make the car quite slow because it'll upset the aerodynamics at the front of the car.
Fantastic start from Craig Lowndes. Really leapt up there, took advantage. Now he's got his mirrors full of the Kmart car as they thunder down toward the final turn onto pit straight. Radisich in control from Skaife.
It does look as if Craig's dropping back a little bit, actually. Oh, look at this here. That's Cameron McLean.
Skaife running with Radisich, looking down the inside at turn 1. End of lap 1, 19 to run. Ingle, Lowndes 4.
Oh, look at this. Elbows are out coming through turn 1. Paul Morris was in there as well. Hopefully they've got through cleanly. This is looking at the back of the Rats car. The Shell Helix Ford that has dominated proceedings so far, but Mark Skaife booked in right behind the Shell Ford now.
And Morris actually lost 2 spots in that as they arrived in turn 1. He went into the corner in 8th, and then he came out 11th.
This is going to be a real test of who's got the best chassis set up here, which car is using its tyres better. Mark Skaife was sort of hampered in his run toward the front yesterday when he got bottled up behind Paul Morris and then spent many laps trying to fight his way past Russell Ingall. Now he's got no one in front of him but Paul Radisich. It's going to be a fascinating battle.
And remember also, as we've said, we've only got 8 tyres for the 3 sprint races this weekend. And so it means that there'll be some interesting combinations in the way in which people are cycling their tyres to make up a set for this race. For example, would you choose a young, complete second set of tyres, or would you use yesterday's tyres, or a mix of them? Do you want to keep your better set for the 3rd race? You can see that Glenn's really having trouble. The car is not sticking to the road at the front end. Look at the way Lowndes just goes straight through the pack. He clips Glenn Seaton on the way, and he had enormous speed on the run to the first corner.
Incredible start.
Was brilliant, wasn't it?
Well positioned on the outside too. Set him up for the next corner. But look at Glenn Seaton, the front spoiler on the FTR Ford. Looks like it's working its way loose. They just stay there, but you can see it's completely come away from the car.
I hope
right-hand side fixing.
Sorry, Mark. I hope that they don't bring him in. I mean, it doesn't appear as though it's actually going to detach itself from the car. But clearly, it's to the performance detriment of the FTR Falcon. He's got Kelly all over him, and Kelly's actually driving in the marbles down the inside as they come down to turn 7, the final corner. You can see that there's enormous rubber and dust build up on the edges of this track, and that's a tremendous shot looking rearward. This is Murphy going up the inside of Lowndes, and he's done the business as they go to turn 1.
59.06 was the first time through. Now it's a 58.9. So Paul Radisich and Mark Skaife are both in the very high 58s at the moment. They expect that to pump out as these tyres start to wear down and lose some speed. We're on board with Craig Lowndes. He's on a charge. He's really on a mission here. Brilliant start.
I think he's still got a car that's not ultimately balanced the way he'd want. He certainly wouldn't want to drop a position to Greg. Greg came off the final corner stronger and was able to make a strong run down the inside as they approached turn 1. And
Was there a contact there?
Yeah, I think there was, and that's probably the second or third time that we've seen a little tap there. So these two are racing very hard. Makes you wonder whether perhaps there might have been some contact the other way around. We've got a Barbagallo car in.
It's Sparks. No.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
35.
so he's miles off in the sand trap there. Now, if they bring a safety car out, keep in mind that under sprint race regulations, safety car laps count as race laps. So it could have quite an effect on the outcome of this race.
Glenn's losing position.
Cars are able to cycle around on slower laps for a few turns.
Johnson.
So the order at the moment is Radicic, Skate, Russell Ingall, Greg Murphy, Craig Lowndes, Seaton, Todd Kelly, Stephen Johnson, Paul Morris and Jason Bright rounds out the top 10.
Just an update on Glenn Seaton. He won't come in as the front of that front bar. The team says he's not complaining too much of any problems and he will persevere.
Well, he really has to, because there's important points on. You can see the yellow flag flying down there at turn 6. Barbagallo is off the very extreme outside of the sand trap down there. He is buried a long way off the road. He must have gone down there and just speared off at a great rate of knots. You very rarely see cars that far off the edge of the road down there.
You've got to feel sorry for old Stephen Johnson. Yeah. He's so sick. He looks like death warmed up. He's got some viral thing.
He speaks highly of you, Barry.
Look at this pack of cars here. Morris under brakes, trying to go up the inside of Jason Bright. There may have been a little kiss there, but not enough to put both cars out. Morris continuing to attack the back of the Holton Racing Team Commodore. They're almost 4 wide as they come down the pit straight this time.
That's amazing.
What a gaggle of cars.
Incredible.
You can see that Seaton continuing to suffer with no front end grip on that car because of the broken fixing on the air dam. He's just drifting back through the pack. John Bow rounds him up there. This is a tremendous shot that we have from the cherry picker right in the middle of the circuit. This is the left-hander turn 4. Look at this group of cars.
Paul Morris is in 9th. It goes right back to, I think, Rodney Forbes.
Look at the car. Look at the car. How many people there? Quite incredible.
Huge train of cars. Good competitive run so far from the improving Lansvale Racing Team. Cameron McConville just missed out on making the top 10 by about 2 or 300ths of a second.
We might see what's happened to Barbagallo here. Oh, he was actually involved with Morris. I don't quite know who did what to who, but he's a long way out there. You don't want to be stranded on the beach down there that far without a towel.
He's not having a good year. Bargs, he's 15th in the points, and that's not going to help his title chase. Meanwhile, the battle continues between Paul Morris and Stephen Richards in the second of the FTR Fords. Noctis Commodore's got a bit of battle damage on the left-hand door, and there's Bargs. What a disappointing day.
Just to walk around this track and you'll find evidence of how destructive this surface really is. There's big strips of rubber lying around the outside, and despite this control tyre being about 3 compounds harder than last year's tyre, they're peeling off in strips rather than balls. Now think about driving around on a giant cheese grater, and this is really what this surface is all about.
Yeah, pretty apt description.
Yeah, very well put. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome our viewers through TV1 in New Zealand, also welcoming viewers throughout the United States on Speed Vision and across Europe on Motors TV. It's great to have you with us. Hope you're enjoying some Australian touring car action with the V8 Supercars and the Shell Championship Series.
Or as Barry would say, Motors TV.
Motors.
Look at this. Look, they're all over each other. Look how far back this queue goes. All the way back from Stephen Richards in 9th position. Look at them all. On battling position. Tony Longhurst in there too.
Just shows how competitive it is. Look where Tander is. I mean, it's just incredible.
And this is what happens in these sprint races with no pit stops, providing the drivers with an opportunity to try and leapfrog the field by way of doing some brilliant pit work. You just get caught up in this train. The cars are so evenly matched. Very, very hard to pass unless the car in front makes a major error.
And it's so frustrating here because you just don't have the normal security and grip under the car that you traditionally have. I described it to somebody earlier today. When you run at Wanneroo and your car's not right, it's as though someone put 40 pounds in all tyres and you skate your way around. You can't touch the throttle, you can't get into the brake pedal the way you'd like to, and it desensitizes the car. Look at Tander coming down the inside of Longhurst. He makes a good clean move.
Yeah, I remember your happy smiling face last year. Wasn't
it was just a barrel of laughs.
Oh, look at this bit of contact here between Brad Jones and Tony Longhurst. Looks like Jones is trying to sneak along the inside. The Aussie male 40 tucks in behind Longhurst, but this battle absolutely raging. Marcus Ambrose at the front of this pair, and Ambrose really paid the penalty. Car dropping onto 6 cylinders while he was trying to run his qualifying lap. That put him back in the queue for the start. You really do battle from there.
It's happened to Morris though, and Seaton's had to come in. Morris was drifting down through the pack there, and he was being attacked by Brad Jones in the Aussie male entry.
Well, he said they learnt their lesson yesterday and going too stiff on the setup. He said they made it much softer.
Bernard. Oh, wow.
Now, for Glenn to come in, I'd say what's happened there is he's flat spotted the front right tyre. He obviously told ground, or the crew told ground earlier, they didn't want to come in just because of the air dam situation, but with the downforce off the front of the car would be more prone to locking a brake and damaging the tyre. You notice they replaced it.
Bernard's having a shocker, isn't he?
Just
Doesn't get any worse.
Trevor Ashby. So Paul Morris continuing to slip back through the pack.
There's Mark Larkham in the Karcher entry. Mark's actually carrying an experimental camera for the first time this weekend. Here's a replay of what happened to Bernard. Just got into the weeds, fired it around. Yeah, Larkham, Avesco, the controlling body, are experimenting with the notion of having all the cars carry cameras to try and do a better job of adjudicating when there are various issues. Obviously, the cost of the damage and the conflicting stories makes it hard for stewards and officials to resolve various questions, and so in an effort to try and make some progress, that's a change that's coming perhaps in the not-too-distant future. Here's the race score situation. Radisich leads Scaife, Ingle, Murphy, Lowndes, Kelly, Johnson and Jason Bright.
Stephen Richards and Cameron McConville rounds out the top 10. Stephen Ellery, John Bowe, Cameron McLean, Marcus Ambrose, Tander and Longhurst. More from Barbagallo Raceway in just a moment.
Updating the news and Aussie.
The 2001 Shell Championship Series, proudly brought to you by Shell Helix. Engine protection proven in the extreme. The Kmart Racing Team, it's just what you need. Victoria Bitter for a hard-earned thirst. And Munro, play it safe. Check tyres, brakes and shock absorbers.
Just past the halfway distance of this second race, round 6 Shell Championship Series from Barbagallo Raceway, Wanneroo, just north of Perth. Here is our race leader, Paul Radisich, working away with a clean sheet so far and looking pretty strong to do the business in this one. He has a margin.
1 second. Last time he crossed the start-finish line, so he's got Scaife's measure here. And the lap times, I've got to say, are pretty impressive. He's been hovering around the mid-59 second bracket, considering he started yesterday running around the mid-58s and drifted up into the high 60s. The fact he started off his second race on used tyres and he's running in the mid-59s would tell you that that Shell Ford is using its rear tyres particularly very well.
Saw a shot looking rearward from Marcus Ambrose's car there with Garth Tander behind. He just dropped the left rear off the edge of the road, climbing out at Cold Corner down at turn 6, and Garth's giving him a little love fight as they come on to pit straight. This time through, those guys will show in 15th and 14th. It's amazing the depth of talent so far down the field, and yet having an absolute battle. And look, Ambrose is out in the dirt. Look how dusty it is, how many marbles there are. And now Longhurst is all over the back of Ambrose. Looks to me like Marcus is battling a little with rear grip. The car wasn't good coming out of turn 6.
He was saying this has been a real education for him as he learns all the different phases of setup on a V8 supercar. He's just never driven a car set up this softly, just the way it rolls around and pitches and squats. He says very, very difficult car to drive. And it's something he's having to come to terms with, that you have to have the car set up this supple if you want the tyres to live on this track.
Craig Lowndes is in 5th place at the moment. He's actually kind of out on his own. He's got Todd Kelly behind, who was shown a bad sportsmanship flag last time through for blocking, because he has got a real battle going with Steve Johnson.
This is Glenn Seaton's problem. Here's the tyre right here. Of course, with the front bar bent, the metal bars that hold the spoiler in place and just cut straight through the rubber, through to the belt in places, and of course that's just too dangerous to go like that.
Oh dear, so the inside edge of that tyre looking ordinary, so it wasn't a flat spot like I suggested. It was actually the air dam damaging the rubber, and that's forced him in. So good call to come in before he ended up off the edge of the road or in a wall.
Fastest race lap to Radisich was on 4, 58.73. He's done a 59.6 and he's pumped it out to 1.8 seconds, almost 2 seconds now over Scaife, who's done a 59.8. So he's just been building ever so slightly. A 10th here, 2 tenths there.
Oh, Murphy's disappeared, has he?
So as long as those rear tyres hang in on that Shell Ford, looks like he's got the Holton Racing Team challenge covered at the moment.
This is the best battle in the field, in the top end at least, between Stephen Johnson and Todd Kelly. and officials were warning Todd not to get too aggressive in the blocking department only a few laps ago. Now you can see he's holding more of a traditional race line, and that becomes something of an invitation for Stephen Johnson.
Battle for 6th position. Todd Kelly in 6th, Stephen Johnson in 7th. With a gap back to Jason Bright, big gap back to Jason Bright, in fact. In 8th place, Stephen Richards and McConville in 10th.
I went into their transporter just before, and Todd Kelly was binding up his wrist. All the guys with Murph was taking the mickey out of him because yes, look at that. He's got this briefcase full of medication. He's got acupuncture needles in there.
It's yeah, he's probably reaching for him now because he just dropped the spot, so that'll make you feel sick.
Johnson just lined him up there. 6 laps remaining for race leader Paul Radisich. But his teammate has just picked up another position. Very critical that Steve continues to pull some points together here because he's well placed in the championship at the moment.
Looking at the engine bay of Paul Morris's car, that suggests it's got a misfire or some other problem, so that was the reason he was drifting down through the pack, which would be frustrating after a great qualifying run for 3rd. And even though yesterday a few of them shuffled by, he still started 8th for this race, which is a very competitive position. He'll be annoyed that something else is taking him out of the game.
Well, Radisich is continuing to grind him down. He's just done another high 59, a 59.7. Scaife has slipped into the 60s, and that's a 2.4 second gap now between Radisich and Scaife.
There's that word from the pit lane that the Morris car is running on 7 cylinders, so it confirms our guess.
So Field sort of settling down now.
Ingle's catching Scaife.
And Ingle actually, the last time through, was running at the same pace as the leader, Paul Radisich. In fact, this last lap through, as they've just crossed the control line, they've both recorded 59.8s. In fact, 1/100th of a second difference. Scaife's actually done a 60.1 on his last lap. So Mark's just a little soft in the pace at the moment, and he could fall into the clutches. We're in the closing stages.
He's just been dropping a 10th or 2 on Radisich lap by lap, and now that's allowing
mind
fall
you,
into the clutches of Ingle.
Motor racing cliche, but one thing to catch, Mark, you want to be well positioned to be able to try and squeeze by. Remember, these two disputed 2nd and 3rd yesterday, and it was Scaife that actually got by in the end.
Well, maybe he realised he can't stay with Radisich, and he's just looking after his tyres the best way he can, to going as slow as he can go without Ingle catching it.
Just thinking points, points, points.
There's been a lot of conjecture about whether or not the new format involving compulsory pit stops has been a good or a bad thing for the sport. Certainly introduced some change and some differences. But this weekend we've returned to the traditional sprint format, and I think if I had to cast a personal vote, I think that the pit stops add another element to the thing for sure. What happens in these races is that the qualifying and the drop of the clutch to some extent predetermines the outcome.
You look at the Tanders and the Bowers and the Ambrose and that, they're stuck where they are and they can't get past, whereas at least with the pit stop situation, you can pull them in and get them out of the traffic and get them in and out quick, and it's
Stephen Johnson
gives you a chance.
Sorry, Baz. Steve Johnson, meanwhile, has really been closing the gap on Lowndes. Look how close he is now.
Lowndes last time through, Mark, is 60.8, so he's now really struggling. He'll have no rear grip, and he's a goner.
2.9 seconds the gap between our leader and 2nd place. Johnson just having a sniff down the inside. The Gibson Motorsport Ford. Radisich's times have been most impressive.
Just listen to the throttle. You just tell that Craig can't get into the throttle as he comes up out of turn 6, and see how much better Steve's been able to get the run there. It only makes maybe 3-4 Ks, but it's enough to put him right in contention. So any tick of the clock, Steve's going to get a better exit off one of these corners and drive straight up the inside of him. And I think he's just done it now.
Look how well those Shell cars are using their rear tyres. Most impressive. Junior's battling with a dose of the fluid, as we've established, but the car is still working particularly well, as is Radisich's car. He's done another 59.9. It's very rarely that Radisich has slipped into the 60-second bracket this whole race. So these Shell Fords have got the dynamite set up for this track at the moment.
One of the cars just went past our commentary point, sounding very ordinary, like it's got a broken head or something. I think it might have been the Bow or the Tander car. The other thing that I was going to make mention of was the fact that I think the variation in the format's a good thing, though, too. We've got sprint races, we've got compulsory pit stops. Don't forget the Superbikes coming up tonight after sports tonight, round 8. They are in Italy this weekend, and that should be a great event. And tomorrow we've got round 8 of the Kart World Series from Portland, Oregon. Elio Castro-Neves was fastest in early practice, and he was the winner last weekend at Detroit. And again, that's coming up after sports tonight. That's tomorrow, Monday.
And Russell Ingall can close in any further on Mark Skate with 2 laps remaining. He really has been able to close up on the Holden Racing Team Commodore, but not able to mount a challenge as yet. You can see these two treading on eggshells toward the race yesterday as both their tyres were starting to get a bit spongy. And then it was a different situation then with Skate closing on Ingall. He got him toward the end. Now Ingall's trying to return the favour in race 2. Oh,
yeah, Mark's battling. He was stabbing at the throttle and be doing everything in his power, and he has massive amount of experience and knowledge to try and make life as gentle for the left rear tyre as possible. Reduce the lateral load, drive the car straight, don't excite the throttle.
oh.
It's very vulnerable.
Ingall's getting very close. 1 lap remaining. 2.4 kilometres of survival mode for Mark Skate.
And it's all bets off because the race director has said he doesn't mind someone driving around the inside in the closing stages when you're actually fighting for your position. What he won't cop is people blocking very early in the race or in the mid-race. So now Mark's still got a margin here as they go into turn 4. The car has got good pace through this part of the track. He's vulnerable over the top of the hill through turn 5. This is 4. And he's vulnerable coming out of 6. So see what Russell can do. Look at here. Gets through there cleanly, didn't drop much ground, if any at all. Might have even made a tiny margin. But this is the one that's been causing him a bit of grief. He might survive.
Listen to the throttle out of here.
Oh, look at the understeer on Russell.
Yeah. He's done it well. He's done very well.
I think it's just been controlled by Scape to the end enough to make sure that he finishes in second without frying the tyres. Meantime, Paul Radisich, that is the margin, folks. We're coming up to end this second heat, 20 laps down. There's the battle for second and third. Russell makes a big lunge at the end, but at the end of the day, it's a Shell Ford 1, Mark Skate for Holden Racing Team 2, Russell Ingall for Castrol Holden in third. Greg Murphy will finish 4th as we go on board with Paul Radisich.
Good effort from Stephen Johnson. Just manages to fight his way up again. He's up to 5th now. Don't forget he qualified 14th, finished 9th in race 1. He's gone from 9th up to 5th in race 2. He's looking strong for race 3. But a brilliant performance from Paul Radisich. He has not put a foot wrong so far this weekend. Pole position, 2 race wins from 2 starts. Can he make it the perfect weekend? 3 from 3. Certainly looking like it at the moment. He's got a grin from ear to ear, the Kiwi. The Rat Attack and Barbagallo.
Remember also we're going offshore for the first time in the Championship Series this year to Pukekohe outside Auckland, New Zealand. I understand that tickets have sold very well in the opening week since they were released, and if you haven't already bought one and you're over there and you're into V8 Supercars, I can't recommend it more highly. Here is the Shell Helix race score. Radisich, Scaife, Ingall, Murphy, Johnson, Lowndes, Kelly and Jason Bright 8.
Stephen Richards and Cameron McConville rounding out the top 10. We'll see you back at Barbagallo Raceway on the other side of this.
Becca's having...
Hi, we're the Big Cab Girls. You're watching V8 on Channel 10.
Just a slice of the huge crowd here at Barbagallo Raceway. They're still streaming in, and we're 2/3 of the way through the event. It's an incredible crowd. Let's have a look at the way they finished after that second race, and Radisich was the clear winner over Scaife. Still hotly disputed for second and third between Scaife and Ingall. Some movers and shakers. Well, Stephen Johnson came up into 5th, having started from 9th. Stephen Richards into 9th, having started from 14th. Looking further down to Cameron McLean, he started 19th, came up to 12th. Remember that Cameron came out of 30th from race 1 yesterday, and look at Glenn Seaton back there in 30th. He started up on the second row of the grid and had that problem with the front right tyre after the air dam cut down on it from that sloppy start without the lights and having to use the flag. But certainly, as I said before, it's been a great battle between Scaife and Ingall, and Russell is with Grant.
Russell Ingall, great drive to third. You've almost pulled in Mark Scaife there.
Yeah, I was hoping to reverse it, what he did to me yesterday, but look, it was, I mean, the car's going better. I mean, it's such a hard track to set up for, you know. We adjusted the setup and we've gone for come on later in the race, but trouble is it's lacking a bit of speed in the middle of the race, so you're sort of juggling, but hopefully we'll get it right in the third one.
Looks like you've got a different attack to the championship, more for points this time. I suppose we could almost call you not the enforcer, but the conserver.
The conserver. What a dreary name, the conserver. I prefer the enforcer. Yeah, look, mate, look, you have to. But look, I'll tell you what, I'm having a go, and if I can get on the tail one of these guys, I'll tell you what, you'll see some enforcing.
We've now road tested the 2 formats back to back. Do you have a preference for the sprint or the endurance format now?
Look, I still got a soft spot for the sprint races, to be quite honest. I wish there was more of them this year. It's just more intense, and you can just push on for the whole race and not conserve. Endurance races, the longer races, you still have to be a bit careful, but this one's me.
Okay, good luck, and we'll see you in race 3.
Cheers, thanks, all right.
Earlier we had a look at how the officials keep the V8 Supercar drivers under control. Now it's time to have a look at how the officials keep the cars to the regulations and to the letter of the rule book. And here it is. This is it, Tiga's V8 Supercar homologation papers. It's a 27-page document. There's one for the Falcon and for the Commodore. Now basically it's a set of specifications, or a blueprint if you like, that the teams follow when they're building a car to the regulations, and then Tiga's technical guys check or measure against this when it comes to doing their random checks throughout the weekend. One of the guys involved with those technical changes or checks is Ray Robbins. Ray, thanks for joining us, and maybe you can run through just one or two of the things that you guys do during the weekend.
Okay, this particular jig here is for checking the suspension points that are fixed in the body that can't be moved. So what we've got to do is remove the suspension out of the car, and then we sit that in the points, and we put a pin through here, here and here. This is the top shocker point, this is the top wishbone, this is the lower control arm, this is the caster bar. And this jig just goes in there, and every measurement has to be within a 20mm sphere of those points. And this tab here is the elongated point from the Tiga datum at the rear of the car.
Another critical dimension in the suspension that has to be constantly monitored is the track width of the front end. That is the distance between the wheels side to side. And the Tiga technical boys have got a very special device for measuring this as well.
On the AU Falcon, the mudguard has to be 4mm in from this gauge, which is set up for Commodore, because the Commodore's got the widest track. And no part of the wheel is allowed to protrude past this down to hub height.
Another very important part in V8 Supercar performance is the aerodynamics. The Tiga technical boys have made sure that's pretty tightly buttoned down too. Have a look at the wing plate here on the end of the Falcon. There's a tightly regulated number of holes, and the wing can only be adjusted within those dimensions. There's also a second check they make throughout the weekend.
And this gauge here shows us that it fits the boot lid perfectly down here and here. And here, no part of the wing shall protrude any further than this gauge here, which is the coinciding point of the rear bumper bar. And then this gauge here goes down to make sure that the wing is not too flat, because if it's too flat, it goes out of the 260mm box, which this shows.
Thanks, guys. As you can see, the Tiga technical people are working very hard all weekend to make sure the cars, like the drivers, are playing by the rules.
It's a tough job scrutineering, because some of the engineers in this paddock can certainly get very creative, and they certainly have to keep control of them. Anyway, we've got a little bit of time as we watch the boys on the bikes before we go to race 3, so let's go back into the paddock. Barry, who have you got for us?
Yeah, thanks, Neil. I'm with Steve Johnson, who's feeling a bit second-hand. What's the matter then, Steve?
Mate, I don't know, I seem to have contracted some sort of virus. I've got no idea what it is. I can see you smiling, don't you? So
didn't have fun getting it, did you?
No, I didn't. But I got it. I just went to bed last Saturday, woke up on Sunday and couldn't move, and I haven't been able to move since. And since then, on Tuesday, Wednesday, I've had to do a couple of Ford functions, and same with up here. And I mean, I've just been dead. I mean, I went home last night, got back to the hotel at 6, and slept every 2 hours. You know, woke up until sort of 7 this morning. But
that's what screws you qualifying up, was it?
Yeah, mate. I couldn't see. My eyes are watering. I'm aching all over, and you know, my kidneys are killing me. I can't sit in the seat properly. So, yeah, I'm not having a very comfortable time this weekend.
Great year for you, though, isn't it? What a massive change there, and massive weight off your shoulders.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I mean, the whole Shell crew have worked hard, and you know, they deserve as much credit as I do with the change in form, really. But the car's great. I'm apart from this weekend, I'm feeling great, and you know, really, you know, I've got the championship well in sight, and I think that it's doable from here.
And last year, you know, your lowest ebb, what did you think? That people saying, oh, he's only got the drive because he's Dick Johnson's son and all that stuff. Could you hear all that?
Yeah, oh, you hear all that, you know, and you know, I think you've heard just about as much as I have. So to be able to you know, pick the form up now and really, you know, give it to those guys up front, you know, like Rusty and Scafie and even Paul, you know, I mean, they're hard racers and they've been around a long time, and you know, I'm sick of hearing about Craig Lowndes all the time, you know, so I thought I'd better do something about it.
What about in that last race? Was it confusing at the start? Because, well, what happened with the lights? Because all we heard was a lights flag or whatever. What happened?
Well, we were just sitting there, and there's about 4 or 5 sets of lights, you know, so the people behind can see high ones and there's low ones, and And I'm looking at all of them and I'm thinking, where's the red light, you know, because he said 5 seconds and it was probably about a 7 or 8 before there was no light, and I thought, So I saw him bring the flag out, and as soon as that flag moved, I was off, so I didn't waste any time. But yeah, it's a little bit confusing, but if everyone's looking up there at the right spot, you know, there's no problem.
And what about for the third race? What about tyres? How are you off for tyres?
Mate, we're looking really good. I think we've only, you know, not even a quarter used our tyres, our rear tyres too. So, I mean, I've just been trying to drive it really straight. It's very hard starting 14th. When you're fighting your way through, it really wears your tyres out quickly when you're passing people. When you're out in front, you can look after them and that. So I've looked after mine fairly well, so I think we're looking pretty good for the last race.
Well, for someone that's knackered, you've done good.
Mate, I had to get scooped out of the car in the last race, so I don't think I'll be sleeping too bad tonight.
Okay, I won't ask you how you called it.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Well, yesterday we saw Mark Scape hunt down and pass Russell Ingall in the closing laps of race 1. Today, Russell Ingall tried to do the same thing, but just didn't quite manage to pull it off. Gee, it looked like you were just treading on eggshells toward the end there.
Well, I just said to the guys about it, it was like driving in the wet, Mark. When the tyres get so bad and they just move around, they're so sideways everywhere, you have a moment every lap. I mean, you arrive under brakes and think, you know, I'm almost gone, and you get around and, you know, it's hard work.
Well done. Now, one of the questions I wanted to ask you, we saw you on the warpath in the pits at Canberra after that race. The stewards have since looked at the footage and cleared it of anything, but can you just explain what was going on there?
Well, what I was disappointed about was that those two guys, Rodney Forbes and Steve Reed, were running into each other, or Rodney had hit him a couple of times, and they were having their own sort of private battle, and I was sort of back about a car length from them, letting them have their own battle. And at the end of the race, when it eventually happened, Rodney gave Steve a bit of a hit at the way into the corner. Steve got wide, and then all of a sudden it was like they were brake tested, and I just ran straight into the back of them. And I went down to find out what happened. That's exactly what I did. And when I walked into their garage, one of their team members, just so happens that drives the car sometimes, he ripped it into me and said it was my misjudgment. And effectively, I wasn't even involved in the accident. I was sort of like the bloke at the end of the traffic queue that just ran into the back of the bloke.
Like a red rag or a bull.
Exactly right. So in the end, I mean, I was upset that I thought originally that was quite malicious, but it wasn't. It was Steve just missed a gear. He just went from first to second gear, missed a gear, and Rodney Forbes ran into him, and then I ran into him very hard. So I wasn't that happy about it, but that's how it was.
Now, you've still got a little bit of work to do today. One more race to come. And you've got 8 tyres that are looking pretty second-hand. How's your final set looking?
Well, there's a lot of tyre strategy here now. A lot of guys would have used 1 set and 1 set. We didn't do it that way, so we've got 2 real good tyres. But we don't know where to put them on the car, whether we put them on the left front and left rear or just across the back. So we'll see what happens.
Hang in there.
Thanks, mate.
Well, tyres are certainly all the chat as we prepare for race 3. Scape will start second. Stephen Johnson 5th. We're back after the break with the 3rd heat from Perth. Almost set now for race 3 from Barbagallo Raceway. Now, this is a bizarre situation. We're looking at the Karsha entry of Mark Larkham on the warm-up lap coming out of Cold Corner turn 6. It looks like the right rear wheel has parted company. Mark's out of the car and he's safe. And the word that we're hearing from our folks down there is that this car may well have rolled over on the way either to the wall or after it's bounced off the wall. Very disappointed Larkham Motorsport team. They've had a dreadful weekend. He was to have started 20th from this field. You can see that there's some scars on the bonnet and there's a split in the windscreen and a little bit of gravel rash on the roof as well. And Mark will not believe this. Something bizarre has happened there, so he will not take his place on the grid, and that car's been removed. Here's the situation after 2 races for this particular 6th round. Radicic has a margin which you'd expect after pole and 2 wins over Scape. Then Ingall, Murphy, Craig Lowndes with 126, and then in the second Kmart car, Todd Kelly, and the cars on their warm-up lap. Mark, can you believe Mark Larkham?
Just goes from bad to worse, doesn't it? He had that enormous shunt at Oran Park last year, which he's still recovering from. Then one at Canberra, now one at Barbagallo. Here's how they line up. Paul Radicic and Mark Scape once again. It's the way it was in race 2. Russell Ingall and Greg Murphy fill out the second row. Stephen Johnson fighting his way up through the field with Craig Lowndes alongside. Todd Kelly and Jason Bright continuing to make his late charge.
Then Stephen Richards for FTR. Cameron McConville, a good run so far in the Optus entry. Stephen Ellery, Cameron McLean, John Bow, Garth Panda. Been a tough one for the local lad.
Talk about hard days. Brad Jones, Paul Wheel, Trevor Ashby, Mark Larkin was going to start from 20th, but as you see, he's out of competition. Rodney Forbes and Larry Perkins, Anthony Tratt, and Jason Richards, the Kiwi, out of 24.
Further back, Faulkner, Romano, Miller, Bernard, Ricciardello, then Glenn Seaton back in 30th, Paul Morris and Jason Barbagallo, who spent some time down in the sand in that second race.
Just a bit of an update from the pit lane. It seems Marcus Ambrose is the only driver out there who will have a green set. It's a green set of tyres on the rears only, so he's coming for 15th position. Watch out for him. He looks like he's going to be in for a bit of a charger. As for the rest of the teams, well, I think it might be a bit of a Torval and Dean experience out there this afternoon.
Right about that, Grant, it'll be skating. Mark Scaife, he starts on the front row from position 2.
Keep in mind, if Scaife manages to win this final heat, Paul Radicic only has to finish 4th or higher to win the round overall. And if Radicic manages to take victory here, that'll be 3 Ford Shell round wins in a row. And you've got to look back to 1995 since the last time that happened for the Blue Oval. So it's been a real turnaround in the Shell Championship Series in 2001.
Have a look at astronaut Radicic there. He's got more hoses, wires, pipes, dingles and dangles hanging from that helmet. He gets very hot, so he's got the thing well ventilated. They're just pushing him back into position. He's slightly outside his starting grid box there.
And the message today would be, Houston, we do not have a problem. Totally dominant so far. Pole position, 2 race wins. If he takes pole and 3 race wins, it'll be the first time since Glenn Seaton achieved that feat back in 1997. So the Ford team's been out of the winner's circle for a long time.
Bit of form up the back of the pack there with Seaton up the back and also Barbagallo. We are set. Lights work, and again Radicic makes an excellent start. Scaife goes with him and covers down the inside, but it's not strong enough. Radicic, Ingle up the inside, and I think he might make a move on Scaife here. It's going to be very tight through the first corner. Scaife will not relent. They go side by side to the S's. Radicic, Scaife, Ingle is forced back, so Scaife hung in there. That was a good bit of driving, and then Murphy in 4th.
A lot of people think that's no man's land on the outside through turn 1, but as you can see, when the switchback happens through the S's, your car's actually pretty well positioned. Scaife took advantage of that beautifully. He's up to 2nd, holding on to 2nd after Ingle got the jump on him off the line.
He held his ground, and there's a lot of marbles up there. It's quite a difficult thing to do. Look how close he is at the back of Radicic as they go through 6. This is the area where Larkham had that wheel come off the car and pitched him into the wall, and he's out of this event. The battle rages. Scaife's got an excellent run off turn 6. He makes a run. It's a crisscross as they head down to the braking area at 7.
Expect Scaife had some good speed in this last race. His tyre strategy has worked pretty well. He's got 2 fresh tyres on this car, which are critical this late in the day. He's got plenty of speed in this opening lap.
It's going to be interesting when we get sort of half race distance and then see who hasn't got any tyres left. Oh,
hearing from race control, yeah. Stop go for Russell Ingle. Not quite sure what the reason is. Let's have a look.
Well, that'll be, I imagine, for creeping off the line. Maybe it may have been a jump start. Look at this battle in turn 1. That's Scaife on the outside, Russell in behind Radicic, and I'm surprised that Mark was able to hold his ground out there because it's usually dusty and dirty, very difficult. Also, we hear stop-go penalty for Marcus Ambrose, again for a false start. So 2 people penalised at the start of this 3rd race, and that really cruels Ingle's otherwise good weekend.
This is the critical one as they build up to speed coming over the hill once again. Their first flying lap time. Radicic has managed to hold the pace down to low to mid-59s throughout the day. Let's see what his times drift out in this last races. That selection of 8 tyres, they're getting right down to what they got left.
You look at Radicic's his car at the end of both races. Oh, look at this. Look. Stephen Ellery.
No.
Cameron, oh, look at that. Well, it's very lucky, Steve Ellery.
He was very lucky not to get T-boned by about half a dozen cars there. I think that was with one of the Valvoline cars. Need to see it again, but quite an extraordinary situation where they got a little bit out of shape coming off the final turn, and Ellery just got shoved to the inside. Here comes Ambrose for his stop-go. Ping-pong back turns to green. Away he goes.
That is not somewhere you want to be broadside to half the V8 Supercar pack.
Oh, there's Stephen Henry's high race, a bit rapid at the moment.
59.97. Paul Radicic's first flying lap, 59.98. First Scaife, who stuck right up behind the bumper of the Shell Ford. This looks like a real battle here.
And you see that Russell's got his left indicator on. He's showing Murphy that he's going to come in. He's taken the flag. Scaife's got the headlights on. There's a little bit of impatience there. He had great first lap cold tyre speed. You saw Ingle peel off, so he comes in for his compulsory stop. Well, not his compulsory stop, it's for an enforced stop.
So Radicic starts his building program again. He's pumped out 3/10 on Scaife that time around. Found 2 or 3/10 in that lap. That's exactly what he did in race 2.
You know, I don't understand this sometimes. I'm sure that they'll have decided that Russell's done something, but have a go at the penalty. I mean, if you're creeping at the start, you know, so he might have made a metre. Now he's lost him, and he's at the back of the field. It's not a just penalty.
It's not a just penalty, and it just ruins a race, doesn't it? I mean, it's just...
I know it's a difficult thing to sort out, because what do? If you don't have a hard-edged rule, then everybody will be creeping at the start. So clearly I know it's something that needs to be controlled, but gee...
But as you say, the penalty doesn't fit the crime at all,
it's very difficult call. You want to try and stop people from gaining an unfair advantage at the start, but equally to drop out of third position and to end up at the back of the field, whoa, that is a serious penalty.
Good performance here from Cameron McConville. Let's have the Shell Helix replay of what happened with Ellery.
I see, so he's given one of the Valvoline cars a tap, and that was Tander, and then Tander comes back across to take his ground, and Ellery ends up in the weeds. Here it is again from the front angle. And so Garth just moving back to cover his ground.
Cameron McConville, his eyes are hanging out on springs.
I reckon Steve Ellery's would have been even further out of his head. How lucky was he?
Yeah, really incredible.
Could have had 12 cars drilling into his door if things had gone a different way. He managed to spin out of the way. Radicic has not been able to shake the whole racing team shadow. Here comes Larry Perkins, the other Castrol Commodore in trouble. So both the Castrol cars suffering. There goes his teammate Russell Ingle right at the back of the pack.
So he's gone off at turn 4 there, so not a good day for the Castrol team. And whether Larry was unaided or somebody else was involved there, hard to see. We're on board with Mark Scaife as they rejoin the start-finish straight. That's the margin first to second. We'll see what it is numerically. It's 0.49. That's what half a second looks like.
That's interesting. Cars. Yeah, the last 3 laps he's managed to just pump that out by a tenth these laps. So he's just starting to build a little bit of a buffer on the Holden Racing Team car.
59.6, 59.6, Radicic and Scaife. They're both matching each other's pace at the moment. And then this battle for the minors. You've got Murphy, Johnson, Lowndes and Kelly. This is looking rearward from Lowndes. Kelly, car 15. And Lowndes has really been fighting a lot of rear-end grip difficulties. Now, one fellow that shouldn't be with us here at the moment, who was supposed to take his place on the grid, Mark Larkham. What on earth happened out there?
Well, Cromley, what's been probably our toughest weekend ever just got tougher. I'm not sure, mate. Something's given way at the rear of the car on the warm-up lap coming out here of the bowl. The car's got out on the sand and it's dug in and just flipped over. And quite extraordinary for that to happen on the warm-up lap. So,
did you have a clip of pace going at the time, or were you going quite slowly?
No, your normal procedure, warming up the tyres, giving a bit of stick going up the hill there, and of course, when it lost its wheel, it skewed left, dug into the sand, and over it went. So, unbelievable.
And it hasn't, as you said before, it hasn't actually been a barrel of laughs all weekend anyway, because for some reason, setup here this weekend has been a horror story for you.
I've got to admit, Cromley, we haven't been able to get on top of it. We've thrown all manner of things.
Well, Mark, thanks for dropping up, and stay with us and enjoy it from this perspective. I can assure you it's not quite as much fun, though.
Got that right.
Can't get any worse, Mark, unless you fall down the stairs off the way out of the commentary room.
Here's the replay, and it's Larry Perkins and Brad Jones. So that was the reason that Larry ended up out there in Sand Central.
So 2 Castrol cars going to the back of the pack. Another incident, Paul Romano and John Faulkner.
John doesn't quite pull it up in time.
Whoops, Ricky Adello in trouble.
Also a report comes through that Glenn Seaton in the FTR Falcon is in the pits. They've got a problem with the engine in that car, Grant.
Yeah, exactly right, Neil. Just looking at the team here, they don't know exactly what it is right now. It sounds pretty rough, I can tell you, a bit like a Mack truck, but another bad day for Glenn Seaton.
Bizarre, considering he qualified on the front row. He should have been in for a good weekend, and then things just went from bad to worse through the succession of heat races. Here's this battle we talked about before between Lowndes and Kelly. This is 5th and 6th. There's a little margin up to Stephen Johnson, and Craig at the moment really being attacked by Kelly, a former teammate. And then those guys indeed have got a fairly reasonable margin back over Stephen Richards, who's 7th.
See, what's interesting too is that gap between Radicic and Scaife at the front. It's stabilised. It's 0.48 of a second. So Radicic has not been able to pump out that gap, that commanding lead he had in race 1 and 2. Holden Racing Team car is going with him.
But he's consistently quicker, though. Only a fraction, but...
It's down to hundreds, isn't it, first? So the order at the moment, Radisich, Scaife just half a second behind the Rat. Greg Murphy in third, Stephen Johnson in fourth, Craig Lowndes in fifth, Todd Kelly sixth, and it's Richards, Bright, Tander and McConville still rounding out the top 10.
You heard in the previous interview that Mark Scaife had retained a cleaner, younger set of tyres for this third race, and clearly he's going to be able to run with Radisich. Some people may have chosen to use set 1 and set 2 in the successive races, and then they'll use their cleanest dirty shirts for the third race, but others have kept a fresher set for the last heat.
Glenn Seaton, can you shed any light on what happened?
The engine's just dropped the cylinder, and we don't know what's either brake or rocker or something like that, so just the way it goes.
Heartbreaking, another performance.
Yeah, it's naturally the car's had good speed this weekend and been caught up with some incidents, and also the engine to have the problem we got now. It's a bit of bad luck.
You must be happy to see the Ford up the front, because the last time the Ford took a clean sweep was 97, and that was you at Eastern Creek, and we might do it again today.
Yeah, it's fantastic for Ford. It's great what they're putting in. They're starting to get something out of it.
Let you get back to it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, those FTR cars have shown a lot of speed on a number of occasions this year, but they've just haven't been able to close the deal for whatever reason. Anyway, great shame for Glenn Seaton. Here's a bit of a challenge. Jason Bright, hard under brakes, sneaks up the inside, not quite close enough to Stephen Richards. Bright continuing to come from the rear of the top 20 as he's done so many times this year. He's up in 8th place.
Jason really had the rear brakes locked on, chirping into turn 1 there. Mark Larkin, that is, not Osler. I'm just curious to get your thoughts on the issue of setup around here. It seems a simple track, 2.4K, 7 turns. We all know it's abrasive. Why, in your opinion, do you think that so many people have so much trouble here?
I think the nature of the surface, Neil, it's very, very unique. As you can see, there's a lot of sand around, which is sort of taking the tops off the stones, and there's not much surface area, if you like. And I think if your car's not right in the window for this circuit, it exaggerates the problem. And we've thrown all manner of things at our cars. A lot of people have, I know, this weekend, and really haven't come up with any answers. So I guess we've got to go away and have a rethink about how we approach here next year and come up with something completely different.
And you're kind of lucky you won't have to approach it next year.
Yeah, well, who knows?
Look at this battle between McLean and Bow, and it's also on with Tander and Bright. Stephen Richards in here as well. There's several vigorous brawls going on. The recurring theme when you talk to people through the paddock is their cars lacking sensitivity. They change 101 things except the door handles, and nothing changes the basic lap speed of the car.
That's the difficulty we've certainly had. It's interesting with Glenn there dropping a cylinder. In fact, he may have been better off staying out. I mean, to run on 7 cylinders around here can be an advantage.
Yeah, actually,
with the loss of power.
Might be better than 600. Here's Tony Longhurst and Brad Jones. Bradley does a bit of sprint car racing and gets all cranked up and sideways coming off turn 1. And he may even get assaulted by one of the Lansvale cars, and I think they've done damage. Yeah, there's damage to the car after that.
New tyre going on from the right rear corner, and Brad's going to get back into action. So Radisich and Scaife continue that battle at the front, still hovering around a half a second gap. Murphy, lonely ride in third. Stephen Johnson doing a good job in fourth. Lowndes in fifth. Positions remaining fairly static at the moment. Todd Kelly in sixth, Stephen Richards in seventh, and Jason Bright rounds out the top 8.
Further back, there's a battle also involving Tander. And then we've got McConville, McLean, Bow, Wheel, Barguana, Richards and Longhurst. Stay with us. More of race 3 after the break. To lap 12 of 20 with Paul Radisich still leading, but unlike the first and second races where he just drove off into the distance, the margin is still pretty slim. It's 0.66 of a second, so Scaife continuing to keep the pressure on Radisich. He's looking for a hat-trick, a clean sheet. Pole, win, win, win. Scaife's going to do everything he can to stop him, but remember also that we've now reached pretty close to the halfway point of the championship. So it's important for Scaife to continue to accrue points. He came into this weekend as the championship leader, and here he is as we go on board, busy as ever. And the last thing he wants to do in a desperate lunge for a win is to throw away a little bag of points. Let's have a listen to what it's like to get around here for a lap and pay attention to the cautious use of the throttle. this battle here continues between Bright and Richards, and Richards gets one out and one wide in the marbles out there and gets all sideways. We had to go away from Mark Scaife, but that gives us some idea of a lap around Barbagallo Raceway, and at this point in the weekend, considering tyre wear, they're all just treading very gently out there at the moment to get through to the flag.
After seeing that, you said there's no way that Radicic is just looking after his tyres and he's going as hard as he can go.
They're all absolutely 10/10ths, but even on that last lap, the margin remained 0.67, Barry, so there's only 1/100th difference between their lap time. This is Tander.
The competitive run from Cameron McConville here, the most competitive run so far by the Lansdale Racing team. Very few V8 Supercar teams based in Sydney, and they're having a good run here. McConville's currently equal 25th in the championship, so he's way down in points, but it's a new operation, their first in-house built VX Commodore coming on stream earlier this year, and Cameron and the team under Wally's story start to gel into quite a formidable operation.
Cameron McLean's done well actually, because he came from way back in qualifying.
Yeah, originally in the first race he was back there in 30th, so for him to be 11th at the moment is a pretty fair effort, and we'll see if we can pick him up. There he is, he's just behind Bradley at the moment. Interesting, the last lap through, Scaife took a few hundredths out of the lead. It's down to 0.57, so just a fraction over half a second. So, you know, it's one of those margins where you cannot afford to miss a gear, lock a brake, miss an apex, or the bloke in second will climb all over you.
Well, we've seen so many times today where the guy gets a foot off a line and it's just like ice.
As far as Cameron McLean is concerned, the reason why he might be doing so well in this race is he's one of the few drivers to actually have a whole set of tyres which have only done about 4 laps. Some that he just kept in the corner of the garage after qualifying and just pulled it out as a card for this race.
Before race 3 said, look what we've got for you.
Yeah, look at this. Stephen Johnson, very close to the back of Greg Murphy's car. Challenging for third. Murphy's been running on his own, but Junior's slowly been closing the gap to the Kmart car. But he's right on him now. This is a great drive from Steve. He is not well, boy.
Yeah, he won't be thinking too much about that right at the moment, though, will he?
The old adrenaline takes over, doesn't it?
Got a big Kmart incentive in front of him at the moment, so he won't be thinking about the snuffles.
The Fords have really come on strong in the last 3 rounds, Mark Larkin. What can you apportion the sudden turn of success with the Blue Oval teams?
I think it really started mid-last year, Mark. Everyone's starting to get their act together. This new under tray helped a lot, just the overall package, and the team's all stronger and up to the level.
You'd have to say the cars now are just so evenly matched. There's no longer a parity issue between the two mates.
Isn't it great that we don't talk about that anymore, really?
Yeah,
I think it's fantastic.
I think we should also point out, Mark, that when we talk under trays, both brands have now got a common under tray. So, and that was a significant step that was taken, what, 2/3 of the way through last year to just ensure the most even competition aerodynamically at the front of the cars.
I think you're right, Neil. That was the turning point. What is interesting here, I'm just looking at the times. We're sort of up into over a minute now in a 60-second lap. We're 3 seconds slower than qualifying. I think that says it all about the surface here that the people are trying to deal with, the drivers are dealing with out there.
To 0.97, Radicic is almost out to a second lead over Scaife, which is significant. And you consider for the last 16 laps they've been punching out lap times within hundredths of a second of each other. It's monitoring around half a second. Now he's got it out to almost a second. So it doesn't sound like much, but he's actually doubled his lead.
And the message went through on the radio to Greg Murphy last time through that if Stephen Johnson gets fired, do not panic. You'll still be 3rd overall on the day. But Murphy's still indicating at the moment that he's not going to give it away without a battle. 3 laps to go. Stephen Johnson is hustling, looking for a way through. The point that Mark Larkin makes is a good one. When you start talking about 60-second lap times around here or high 59s, suddenly the braking markers that you had when you had clean, grippy tyres, they've all moved out by not a few metres, but by tens of metres. You can't attack the throttle in any way, shape or form like you did when you had grip. You've got to change the rhythm and the way in which you mesh with the car. You can't hustle it. You have to kid the car and caress the car to get it home to the flag.
And look at these guys racing. I mean, they really are on tenterhooks. Hard to imagine from outside the car, but it's that much harder racing like these two guys are doing in those conditions.
Look at Murph glances at the mirror. Stephen Johnson got a bit of a run at him that time, but may not be enough. And Greg's a wake up. He could just run a little bit wider going to the corner. He's allowed to do that under the motor racing law. He can move 2 or 3 feet either way. 2 laps to go this time, so 2 minutes of racing for Stephen Johnson. Do you have a go or not?
60.54 for Radicic, 60.68 for Scaife. It's out to just over 1 second now. So Radicic has been able to fend off the Holden Racing Team challenge here. With less than 2 laps remaining, it could be a clean sweep for the Rat, Barbagallo.
If Stephen Johnson can get this done, it'll have to be out of turn 6, coming out of Cold Corner. This is 5 over the brow of the hill. It's a bit of a blind brow, and then the fast run down here. There's a big bump on the braking approach into this corner. They've just gone across it there. It tends to light up the inside front tyre and very easy to lock a brake. Now, if Johnson gets a good exit out of here, he might get the run he needs. He has got a couple of Ks on him. This is the best opportunity he's had, but Murphy will move across to the middle of the road.
Hanging on by his fingernails. Oh, look out, boys. Johnson is... Oh,
yeah, mate.
Almost looked like he was going to stick his guard right alongside the right rear wheel of Murphy's car. He just wasn't quite close enough. 1 lap remaining.
Do you think both those guys were on the braking limit then?
Couldn't have got closer than that. Craig Lowndes has his mirrors full of Todd Kelly, so the 2 Kmart Commodores doing a good job inside the top 6.
Order is Radicic, Scape, Murphy, Johnson, Lowndes, Kelly, Bright, Tander, Richards, McConville, McLean, Bargwana, Bow, Wheel, Richards, Jason Richards, Tony Longhurst, Ingle back up to 17th after that stop-go. Then Ashby 18th, Rodney Forbes and Anthony Tratt 20th.
I think the significance of those leading cars, Neil, it's Ford, Holden, Holden, Ford, Ford, Holden. Good mix amongst that top 6.
More people stayed in the 59s in the latter part of this race than the earlier event. Final lap. And it's going to be all Paul Radicic at the end. It's a remarkable result for him, but can his teammate deal with Greg Murphy? Here comes Radicic, the leader and the ultimate winner.
He's got the lights flashing on, and the crowd has gone berserk. Ford fans erupt as Paul Radicic brings it home. 3rd win in a row for Ford in the Shell Championship Series. The first time they've done that since 1995. There's the team owner Dick Johnson and team manager Dean Orr congratulating each other on a job well done. Amazing performance from Paul Radicic. An equally impressive one from Junior Johnson.
Terrific result for the Shell team, and not a bad recovery from Stephen Johnson, who certainly didn't start out with great strength earlier in the weekend. Quickly before we go to the results, thanks Mark Larkin for coming up. I know it's a miserable task to have to come up, but we look forward to seeing you at Calder.
Thanks, Neil.
Now look at this on the Shell Helix replay. The battle continued between Todd Kelly and Craig Lowndes all the way through this last lap. Biff and barged. A tap here and a tap there, but I know that Lowndes got through in the end. He finished in 5th, only just though, and Lowndes takes a bit of road back off him and says, well, I can play that game too. It's spirited out there. There's the winner. You'll pick up 288 points on the day or over the course of the weekend. Excellent performance from Paul Radicic. A good, solid, steady run from Mark Scape, protecting his championship lead. An excellent recovery from Stephen Johnson there in 4th. He ended up just 4 seconds down. It was certainly much tighter at the top in this one. Then it was Lowndes in 5th after having all that biff and barge with his old mate Todd Kelly. Jason Bright in 7th, and then Garth Tander in 8th. He was down 16 seconds. Stephen Richards, McConville, McLean, Bargwana, Bow, Wheel, Richards and Longhurst. And we're back to talk to the winners after this break on your home of motorsport.
Well, Paul Radicic, Ford are back, and DJR are the pack leaders. A clean sweep, well done.
What a day, huh? Started out well yesterday, pole, and winning the first race in 2 in a row today. No trouble, had a bit of brake trouble in that last one, so I just wanted to keep on the island, but everything's going so well, and great to break the Holden dominance in this track.
I'm almost getting sick of hearing the word tyres around here because it's played such an important part. Did you have the best at the end of the day, or is it something you just drive around?
Well, I think, you know, our setup worked extremely well, and hats off to the team. They did a great job to give me the car to do the job, and I was just able to drive around at a good, smooth, consistent pace and conserve the tyres. It was a little sticky at the beginning of the race because Mark was all over me like yesterday, and I was able to hold him up and then just sort of stretch things away from there.
Now, last time Ford won 3 consecutive rounds was 1995. Can you do it for the next round?
Who knows? It's so competitive out there, and you know, as you can see, I mean, we were very competitive in Canberra and have a lot of problems, but we're able to bring that speed to a circuit with sweeping corners, and you know, I think we can keep building on it. But if we can do it again, we'll just have to wait and see.
Great drive, well done. We'll let you enjoy it.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Grant.
Mark Scape, that looked like a pretty hard day at the office, but a good result, 2nd place.
Well, I said to you after race 2, Mark, that we were, that we were in it, and I reckon in the last race we were much further in it. I mean, our car was very close to Paul's, and we made a few changes to the back of the car for the last race. It looked after the tyres, but it was a really good battle. I mean, there was nothing in it. It was fantastic.
What about these Fords, eh? 3 in a row. You blokes have got some competition all of a sudden.
Oh, look, I think it's great. There's no doubt about it. And, the more that they put the pressure on us, the harder we've got to try, and the challenge is certainly there. So, no, I'm looking forward to the rest of the season, no doubt.
Now, we've got Calder coming up in July. Different kind of track, but more sprint racing.
Yeah, more sprint racing and a sort of circuit that will bring the field together. I mean, if Wanneroo brings the field together, Calder will be something else. There'll be 25 cars within a second. And in the middle of winter, who knows about the weather? So, stay tuned for the next exciting episode.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well, Greg Murphy, 3rd place. That will help the championship aspirations.
No, it's great for the team. The guys did a great job today. It was a bit of a handful out there, like it was for a lot of guys. And the last race was pretty tight with Steve right up my bum. So it was great. It was a good day, and it's great to be on the podium, and it is good for the championship. That's the most important thing.
It was a great battle with you and Junior. Now, does that mean that you like these sprint races maybe a little bit more?
No, not really. I think we've got a good mix, personally. I think a couple of sprint races is good, and the rest endurance. I'm really enjoying the endurance races. They are exciting. I think they're great for the crowds. Obviously, you wouldn't want to do an endurance race here, so it's perfect for a sprint race. So, I think we've got a good mix.
And after the 3 heats here, this is what it looks like for the round 6 results in the overall. Radisich takes 288 on the day from Mark Scape and Greg Murphy, as we just saw. Interesting further down to look at Ingle, then Craig Lowndes, Stephen Johnson, Todd Kelly, Jason Bright, Stephen Richards and Cameron McConville. Radisich was awesome today. 2 wins today, a win yesterday, and then that pole position, quite an extraordinary performance. So he takes the trophy and the laurel wreath. Ross Brodie from Shell Australia making the presentation to Paul, certainly making amends for that difficult run that he had at Canberra, because he really buried himself after the mishap in qualifying. Here's the situation in the championship points overall after 6 rounds. Scape consolidates his lead, 16-12. Plays Jason Bright 15.03, then Russell Ingle 12.68, so it's all holding up the top. Then Stevie Johnson, the first of the Fords. Greg Murphy, he's moved up. Marcus Ambrose, tough day for him. Then Stephen Richards for FTR in 7th. Todd Kelly, didn't he have a great battle with Craig Lowndes? Craig has moved up in 1 position, and Glenn Seaton in the wars today, damage to a tyre, and then obviously having problems with the engine there at the end of the game. Well, Barry Sheen, an interesting round. We returned to the old format, and Radisich was just unstoppable.
Well, it was really good. I think today's show, it's good to have a change, isn't it? But having said that, I think that the pit stop thing is the way to go, because it really gives, everybody within the team a bit of a crack of the whip. And as you saw today, I mean, if you look at the 18th, 20th sort of spot in the race, it's so difficult for people to get past here, and with the circuit the way it is, there's a lot to be said for the pit stops.
And something of a Ford revival. I mean, clearly it's still holding at the top of the points table, but it is good to see some more balance in there, and I think it's so close between those 2 top teams and leading cars at the moment.
Well, it is. You see DJR team is obviously the hot Ford team. The Stone Brothers had a really lousy weekend now, but it's nice to see Dick Johnson with a smile on his face, because it's not a pretty sight when he's not smiling.
Now, I know you were a bit filthy this morning about the traffic coming in here. I mean, the upside is that we had an awesome crowd here today, but that brings with it some problems.
Well, it does. I think the spectators deserve better, really, because there were people when the first race started today, then there were people turning round and going home because they couldn't get in, and I just think it's a little unfair on people. It's okay for us. We can go down the outside, get nicked by the police or whatever it is. But the police were really good, It's just the fact that the way it's designed here, it's not conducive to a big crowd.
Just picking up on the comments that Mark Scafe made in the interview there a moment ago, Barry, we go to Calder next, and it'll be the same format. It's only 2 rounds this year where we have the sprint format instead of the compulsory pit stops, and it's a track that brings the cars together. It's going to be on there.
It really is. I mean, there's no doubt about it. As he said, if you reckon this is bad, you wait till you see Calder. Calder is going to be, I reckon, the top 25 in about 0.6 of a second.
Well, it's certainly going to be interesting. We're now getting into the crucial second half, and in the not-too-distant future, we've got some endurance racing, so it's all going to change. But we've got a heap of great motorsport to come tonight. Round 8 of the Superbikes coming from San Marino. That'll be after sports tonight. Once again, check your local guide for details. And then tomorrow, we've got round 8 of the Kart World Series from Portland, Oregon. I can tell you that Max Pappas is on pole position for Team Rahal, and then the next time that we meet you for V8 Supercar Racing, round 7 of the championship from Calder Park Raceway just outside Melbourne, and that's certainly going to be great. Well, we certainly hope that you have enjoyed yourself here this weekend watching round 6 of the championship. Been a great weekend for Paul Radisich. On behalf of the entire 10 Motorsport team, thanks for being with us. Look forward to seeing you in Melbourne in a few weeks from now.
gets out of that in a hurry.
Oh my goodness me.
That's a nasty.
The 2001 Shell Championship Series, proudly brought to you by Ford. Repco, we know what it is, we know where it goes. And Strathfield, drive in and jive away.